Turning now to the latest in Iran, former Prime Minister Mir Hossein Mousavi is pressing the government to allow a protest rally. Mousavi lost the June 12 presidential election to Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, but he's charging widespread violations, blighted voting. The Interior Ministry hasn't granted permission for the demonstration in Tehran. That's according to a statement posted today on Mousavi's campaign website. Mousavi has said the election was rigged and called for its annulment after official results gave Ahmadinejad almost 63% of the vote. The former prime minister took about 34%. Vice President Joe Biden said yesterday, quoting here, there is some real doubt about the election results in Iran.
Look, that's what they're announcing. We have to accept that for the time being, but there's an awful lot of question about how this election was run, and we'll see. I mean, we're just waiting to see. We don't have enough facts to make a firm judgment.
Vice President Biden said the Obama administration will proceed with the plan to engage with Iran. What's the political and economic impact of the election results in Iran? Joining us now is Walter Russell Mead, the Henry Kissinger Senior Fellow for U.S. Foreign Policy at the Council on Foreign Relations. Sir, welcome to Bloomberg News.
Good to be here.
Your first thoughts on the results of the election. Is there something there that gives you cause for concern about the legitimacy of the outcome?
I think probably Ahmadinejad would have won a fair vote, but I'm not sure this was a fair vote.
And why do you say that?
Well, I think it's clear that there does seem to have been some vote rigging, and maybe a lot of zealous officials got a little bit ahead of themselves. But there has been some independent polling suggesting that Ahmadinejad did have stronger support. People in the media and in the West, we tend to talk to the Iranians who are in the middle class, who speak English, who may see the world a little bit more the way we do. We sometimes underestimate how much support is out there in the boonies.
What do the results mean for the United States, for the Obama administration going forward? As I mentioned in the story prior to our interview, the administration, according to Vice President Biden yesterday, still wants to stay on track to engage the Iranians.
Well, I think they're going to continue with that policy, and I don't see any reason why they shouldn't. However, probably both the president and the vice president understand that it's one thing to talk with the Iranians, it's another to get the Iranians to say what you want them to say.
Which is?
Well, for example, we are not interested, we are willing to give up our nuclear weapons ambitions.
Now, interesting because, as you know, last week, Senator John Kerry of Foreign Relations said that Iran does have a right to nuclear materials, but for peaceful purposes as an original signatory of the Non-Proliferation Treaty.
Well, that's correct.
Then what would be the problem, at least from the critics who see otherwise?
Well, I think the question is whether Iran is planning to stop with that. There's a lot of evidence they've apparently lied to international inspectors over the years. But you also have to ask, why does a country with such enormous oil reserves need to spend billions and billions of dollars and face all this international pressure for a nuclear program if the only goal is energy? Surely if Iran has an energy shortage, at least in any reasonable frame of time, they can look to their oil resources to meet that need.
Tell us your sense of how Mr. Mousavi energized the Iranian electorate, specifically the young voters.
Well, clearly his message of hope and change was one that a lot of the younger voters wanted to see.
And a lot of the younger voters saw here.
That's correct. But I think the difference is that his support in Iran seems to be mostly, again, with the educated upper middle class, with the middle class voters in the cities. But there are a lot of people in Iran who seem to go for Ahmadinejad's populist message.
And he's defined himself as somebody who, for lack of a better phrase, is not an elitist, somebody who is a hero of the common man.
So maybe this is a rerun of the Kerry-Bush election of 2004.
No hanging chads in Iran. The supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, how much pressure is he under right now?
It's hard to say. I think they're looking at now just what kind of a problem they're facing with this unrest. In the past, the regime's been pretty good at putting down these movements. If you look at the history of Iran post-79, there have been waves of popular protest. But I think so far the regime has managed to crush them, and I wouldn't be surprised if they can do the same thing this time.
The oil market traders have been shrugging off this situation. They've indicated they're going to be keeping a close eye on developments. How key is that?
Again, only if you saw unrest spreading regionally throughout Iran and interrupting oil shipments or threatening to do it would the oil markets be particularly worried over the short term. and I don't think there's much sign of that at this point.
Yeah, any sense that instability might threaten the wider region, oil supplies in the wider region?
Again, probably not. I think most people are betting now that the regime has the ability to crack down successfully. That might not be a good thing long term, but in the short term it probably does mean stability.
Russell Walter Mead, the Henry A. Kissinger Senior Fellow for U.S. Foreign Policy at the Council on Foreign Relations, joining us. Sir, thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you.